Oh, shoot. I didn't even notice that I hit go live. Wow. Sorry, guys. I just only, I looked over and I saw a super chat, and then I was like, oh, I should probably click live. And then I was like, wait, the button isn't there. So that just happened. Yes, so hello. I am live. It's been a strange week. Let me make sure that I have this up on this side. I was like, oh, I should probably click live. And then I was like, wait. Mute! Okay. So, hello. All right. So, I saw that we have Trashman's intro, and then I saw that there was another super chat that went even before I clicked live. So I'll have to. It's gone now. So I'll have to see if I can find it. So Trashman says, I'll even put him up on the screen. Live from the land of Lexington, it's the defender of the Old North Bridge herself, the tip of freedom's spear, the cutting edge of common sense, the porcupine's quill in the ass of tyranny. Good golly, it's Miss Dolly. Thank you. And let me see if I can go find that other super chat that popped up. Oh, it looks like there was no message with it, and just Christoph. Thank you. And was there... Oh, there was even another one before that that's weird okay. Robert Alexander says, your videos and shows awesome. I always appreciate the hard work you put into making your videos, and especially your use of humor to make a point. Stand strong and keep standing for liberty. Thank you. Yeah, so like I said, let me say hello to everyone first. I feel really disorganized today, and I know that sometimes I say that, but I've got reasons this week. So let's see who all is here. B. Griffin is here. Q is here. We have Judged Ray Barden. She told me she would be here. Hello. Andy is in. Tim Allen, Iron Daisies. Judge Joseph Crackle. I know I never say it right. B. Griffin, I don't know if I mentioned him yet, but he's here. Aaron Miller, John Doe. Lone Wolf, Eric Wegscheid is in. Michael Froelich, File and Flight. Jesse Meek is in. EST 1980. Patriot Detective is here. Richard Jeffries, Fire Makes Me King. Wow, there are 13 police officers that have died? Damn. Crip Crack Attack. You guys are giving me tongue twisters. Dave Smith, Torque 1. Let's see. Adam Edwards is in. Raymond Shimitar, Sinister Italian. Deep Purple, without all the vowels. Dave Flowers, Grayson May, JJ, Indy 500 fan, Jeff Stewart. Official Elon Musk YouTube channel. Probably not, but that would be cool. Meme Soft, Squid Monkey, Green Bean. You guys have some great names. Rider Dust, Elemental, Aaron Miller, Jason Wise, One Ron, Michael Quintero, Mr. Mark, Chue Metalhead is in. I'm seeing a couple people in here that I don't remember. One Ron, I don't know if you've been in a live chat before. Dave Smith, but I remember it's not the Dave Smith, because I thought that once. Rockstar 69, Sandy Valente 101, Gary Hendricks. Foe is here. Foe. It's not foe. The Philosopher is here. Gary Highway, Dwayne Christensen. Thank you, Crazy Uncle Bob, for calling me an adorable patriot. And thank you, Ray. Says, good evening. Watching with Xandria this evening. Gotta raise the preschooler right. Thanks. Yes, it would be cool if we had the real Dave Smith here. So, all right. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is this video normally live streams are also broadcast to my Facebook page. And that is not happening today because I have deactivated Facebook. Not necessarily by choice. So I don't know what is the deal with my page. I don't know if it's like still up and I just can't update it, or if you guys can't see it. I don't know. Actually, I'll Google and see what happens, I suppose. I do have a sock account that I made to moderate my group for patrons, but it doesn't allow me to post on the page itself. What happens when I click? Okay, it does show up on Facebook, it looks like. So the channel page is still up, it looks like. It's telling me to make an account. Not now. Yeah, okay, so the page is still up, so that's cool, but this video is not going to be on there. So what happened is I woke up Wednesday morning to find out that on Tuesday I had been doxxed. And the way that I figured this out was really strange and convoluted, but there's an LD page, but nothing on it. Interesting. Okay. Oh, that's good to know. So I know that there's a lot of people saying, oh, well, first of all, I posted about this on YouTube and and on Twitter, and of course to my folks over on Patreon. And there was a lot of people, at least on YouTube, that were kind of like, not serves you right, but kind of like, oh, well, that's what you get for being on Facebook, and that's what you get for using social media, and like, oh, well, you should have had your page friends only, or restricted, or private, or blah, blah, blah. And to that, my answer is, number one, the whole Liberty Doll concept, like brand, whatever you want to call it, started out as a Facebook page, and at the time, that was the way to network and post and reach an audience. Back in the day, Facebook pages were where it was at. And that's, the Liberty Doll page. My personal page has always been very restricted to friends only. And the only people that I ever added to it were people that I knew in person, either through school or through work. Or were people within like the Liberty like community. So if you were someone in like the Liberty movement and we had 150 mutual friends, I would probably add you, depending on like if I looked through and how many of the people in that list I actually knew. So my page was always restricted to friends, family, people like that. So anyways, what happened is I woke up on Wednesday and there was like a whole bunch of like rando comments in my notifications from people that I didn't know. So I clicked on the notifications and I had made one public post in the last couple months that linked to a suicide hotline and just said like, hey, basically said, hey, these are tough times for everyone, blah, blah, blah. If you need it, here's a suicide hotline, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And on that post were a bunch of comments from people telling me that I am disgusting and that I should lose my therapy license. And to do this, they also posted screenshots from my personal Facebook page. So one of the comments says, for example, you're a therapist and you posted this really advocating for shooting people, you need your license revoked. And it was in response to a post where I had posted about the riots. And all I had simply said was, this has been going around Facebook and Twitter. If you're in the Boston, stay safe and stay loaded, because it was a post for an Antifa rally. And I don't really think that there's anything particularly wrong with saying, stay safe and stay loaded. That could mean a million things. But someone had even commented and said, well, what if it's a peaceful protest? And in response, I said, I absolutely expect that it's a peaceful protest. This isn't in, I'm not worried about protesters. I'm worried about bad actors taking advantage of the situation. But nonetheless, that was screenshotted, and someone posted a screenshot of the screenshot with a caption. And unfortunately, this is the part where I don't know how much information was revealed because I can't read the whole caption and there is no name on it. So that also means that it can't be traced. But the screenshot of the screenshot says, "Hi, I would like to know how you would address this because I'm at my wit's end with this bitch. I unfriended her," so it was someone who was on my friends list, "and blocked her on my phone years ago after seeing one of her videos. She is a YouTuber who goes by Liberty Doll." And then they posted my name, and they said, "Her views are like Caitlyn Bennett." And they spelled Caitlyn Bennett wrong, so I know it's no one in like the Liberty community because we all pretty much dislike Caitlyn Bennett enough to know how to spell her name. And then it says, "A mutual friend sent me a screenshot," and then it's ellipses, and I can't see the rest. But there are 50 comments on this screenshot, and wherever this is, I'm imagining that there are a lot more than 50 comments now because the timestamp on the screenshot was 19 minutes after I made the original post. So this is somewhere on the internet and has been for some time, and this is somewhere on Facebook because it's got Facebook reacts and stuff on it. So whoever it was is someone who is on my friends list who took a screenshot and sent it to someone else that I know or knew, and together they posted my personal information on the internet. Now, I don't make it a secret that I am a therapist. I talk about it here and there, but for the general, I mean, unless people tune into my live streams every week, for the most part, people don't remember because they ask me all the time what I do for work. And, you know, I do talk about mental health topics. So, my main concern, so I don't know if my address was released or what, because like I said, I can't see the whole post. I talked to 2 different police officers that I know. One of them is local, and the other one, as I talked to Jared from Guns and Gadgets at the suggestion of some of my patrons. So the local person was just like, yeah, there's nothing that you can do. It's not, I mean, it's on Facebook, so it's public information. People can interpret that anyway, blah, 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 blah. You don't have a name. You don't know who did it. There was nothing you can do. And then I talked to Jared, and he basically said the same thing. Jared told me that I should talk to the police, not because they can do anything. He said there's not even enough there for a report, but I should talk to the police just to have it documented in case I become in physical danger in any way. And I mean, I don't really feel comfortable with that because, well, A, there's nothing to report. And the last time I had to file a police report here, I won't say I was treated badly because I wasn't treated badly, but I was definitely dismissed. And, you know, that was with Creepy Van Man. And even though I had a partial license plate and everything, and attempted to file reports twice, they were like, oh yeah, there's nothing here for us to really do. And this is the same police department that was like, oh, there's a guy stalking you, go try to engage him. Number one. Number two, it was just last week that I was talking about corruption on my local police force. So I probably don't want to go to them and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so, and this is what's happening. Because, I mean, yeah. And, yeah, as Patriotic says, screenshot of a screenshot of a screenshot. That's exactly what it is. And when I posted it on Twitter, I had a few people reach out to me and be like, hey, I can help you figure out who it was. And I told them all I have is screenshots of screenshots. And they were like, yeah, there's no way to trace it. There's nothing that you can do. So, what I did is, for now, I deactivated Facebook. Another thing to consider is, because of my profession, we are told to keep our Facebooks like very private. And there's actually a setting you can go in there and make it so that you're not even searchable. So if you were to type my name into the search bar on Facebook or anywhere on Google, you will not find my Facebook page. That is a setting. I don't know if it still exists in Facebook, but it was back in the day. And so I have that. So that means that not only did this person post screenshots, they would have had to unblock me, I guess, and get a link to my personal Facebook to post. Because that's the only way that you can find my Facebook, is through a friend or with an actual link, because I'm not searchable. And that was something that I realized today. And I'm like, well, that's kind of crazy. So yeah, I deactivated Facebook simply so that, I guess, to try and curb some of the damage, so that if there is a link to my Facebook floating out there, people will click on it and go to a blank page. And yeah, so there's that. I guess, Tristan Goodrich says cops in deep blue areas are all crooked. Every department in far left areas are rotten to the core. I don't think that every single person within my local police department is bad, and every single cop in a blue state is bad. I mean, Jared is here in a blue state, and Jared is like awesome. He is the man. But I don't trust, with some of the things that I've heard and read and seen, I don't necessarily trust my local police department. There also is the matter of, in the state of Massachusetts, anything and everything can really be, you are at the mercy of your police departments as far as your gun license, and anything and everything can kind of disqualify you. You are at the whim of, whether the chief of police likes you or is having a bad day or whatever. So I can only imagine if I walked into my police department and I'm like, hey, there's someone that released my personal information online because they think I want to shoot people. And that is the same person who is in charge of whether or not I get to keep my gun license. In a blue state, that doesn't seem like a great idea to me at all. So I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay deactivated on Facebook for I don't know how long, at least a week, I guess. The other thing is that, my Facebook is my only point of contact with some family members. But then again, I don't really have a really close relationship with many family members. But it is my only point of contact for like a few people. So I don't know. But I'm gonna stay deactivated for at least a week, maybe 2, maybe more. I don't know. And then what I guess I'm going to do is I'm going to have to do a massive purge of my friends list and get rid of anyone who I am not currently in like close contact with, or who's in the Liberty community, because I don't think that anyone in the Liberty community, any of the big L libertarians, small L libertarians, anarchists, voluntarists, any of them, like the ANCAPs, I don't think that any of them would take issue with protecting personal property, would take issue with self-defense, would take issue with Second Amendment stuff in general, and I don't think that they would release personal information over something as small as that. And like I said again, I think that most of us know the proper way to spell Caitlin Bennett's name, whether we like her or not, and they probably wouldn't compare me to Caitlin Bennett and saying that her views are the same, seeing as I have criticized her on several occasions, or critiqued her behaviors, we'll say. So I don't think it was any of those people. See, example, Red Rum says, I have little sympathy for anyone on Facebook. You should know better. I mean, I feel like that's, I don't like using the term victim blaming because it sounds very social justice-y, but that's kind of bullshit. Because, I mean, you guys don't know how old I am, but I will tell you that when I first got on Facebook, it was strictly through your college, and you needed a college or university email to even enroll. And then at that point, anyone else was like invite only. So the only people that I had on there to begin with were my college friends. And then I used it. I added some coworkers that I became friends with, and then used it as a networking tool for people within the Liberty movement. So, I mean, to say that it's my fault for being on Facebook, number one, completely strips the other people of their responsibility in this and the role that they played. And number two, like, who knows? Well, would you say that if I only had 10 people on there and they were all family members and it was a family member that did this? I mean, I think that that's a fair question. LD is a boomer. Not quite, but close. I see I've got a lot of super chats coming in. So yeah, I'm going to have to go through and do a big friend purge. I actually suspect an old coworker right now, to be honest. A recent old coworker is kind of who I suspect at this point. Well, a combination of coworkers who actually at one point I was going to go into business with, and then didn't. That's who I'm suspecting at the moment, because one of them did end up blocking me, and I remember her disappearing from my Facebook, and I used a sock account recently to see if she still had a Facebook account, and she does. And the other coworker did comment on that post. So that's my theory at this moment. But Philosopher says, for saying fuck correctly, thank you. Sean Morolf says that he can see my Facebook page. Rob Allen says, so what is being doxxed? So being doxxed is when someone releases your personal information on the internet with malicious intent. And then Philosopher also says, oh shoot, I think that means someone on your personal Facebook needs to be cleaned out, or multiple time to clean the friends list. Exactly. Also, the fact that whoever it was said that they had unadded me and blocked me years ago also means that they know my maiden name, which is the one that my therapy license is under, as opposed to the married name that I have everywhere on the internet. So that's something else to consider that freaks me out a little bit. Mr. Rover Pilot says, well, hey, Liberty, I still love you. Thank you. Trash Panda says, 365 says, Facebook is pure garbage anymore. You're better off without it. Keep being awesome, LD. I mean, I don't use my Facebook page, my Liberty Doll page very often anymore, because now you have to basically... They make you, if you actually want to appear on people's news feeds, you have to pay, as if it's an ad. So you have to pay for your content to get viewed, which is crap. It's not all that different from what YouTube is doing now, except YouTube wants you to like follow the line and toe the line to get viewed, while Facebook flat out asked $4. But I mean, at the time, I will say that I have a pretty good group of online friends right now, like that online girlfriends even, that like I went to one of their weddings in September. A couple of them I consider close personal friends. Some of the other people that I met them all online through libertarian groups early in the beginning that were on Facebook, and that's how I got into a lot of advocacy, and the Ron Paul train and all of that was from Facebook. And at the time, that was the way that you reached people and got information. So Sorry that I utilized a tool that was a very good tool at the time. Now I mostly just use it to scroll through and get news articles and see what people are posting. Robert Chappelle says, liberals doxing, advocating violence, good time. Yeah. Robin Patty says, is it legal in Massachusetts to get little boxes of 20, 25, or 50 brass ornaments shipped directly to your house? And the answer to that is yes. It is illegal here. And even for any company to ship anything to Massachusetts, they also have to have an FFL or address within the state. And you can't get anything delivered directly to your door. Not legally. Fire Makes Me King says, if you don't trust the PD, at least note it with an attorney. You may need the doc in the future. I had an XGF filing false police reports. Well, so the other thing is law offices are closed. Nothing is open in the state of Massachusetts still. I do have a lawyer that put together my LLC. I mean, I guess I can send him an email and be like, hey, I don't know if this is your thing, but I need to have it documented. I guess I could do that, but I haven't heard from the guy since March because everything is closed and no one's allowed to do business. Even now, the only thing that's open are construction companies, I think landscapers and restaurants for like carry out, takeout services. They just allowed salons to open by appointment only, provided that like there's only a couple of people in the building and blah, 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 blah. Like my dentist isn't even open yet. They're not doing yearly physicals or anything yet. So I don't even have a lawyer that I could call or talk to or document it with. But I suppose I could give that a shot and send him an email and just see what happens. One Drop says, two-way protects you, not the government. The government only infringes on our rights. Not comforting. Very true. Mr. Rover Pilot says, so I need to know if you want us to share any of your videos on Facebook right now. I always have, but perhaps you don't want us to do it for a while. Sharing my videos on Facebook is fine. Whatever. Yeah, that's fine. I lost my train of thought. If you want to share my videos, keep sharing my videos. That's fine. Quite honestly, YouTube has been pretty discouraging this month too, because pretty much everything I posted this month, everything with the exception of my live streams for the last month, was flagged and demonetized. So like my last video has been up since, when did I post that? Monday, I think. And it's got a whole 17,000 views. Which in the past, I have sometimes gotten in a day. Sometimes in a few hours. And now it's been like 4 days and 17,000 views. So whatever. So in that vein, I think, and unfortunately, I try to match, I try not to just prop up my affiliates indiscriminately. I try to attempt to attach them to a video that makes sense and or that it relates to. And the last few videos haven't really had that, so I think I'm going to have to rely on them a little bit more heavily. And Robert Chappelle says, my Facebook, Twitter, YouTube handles all BS. I've only revealed my true identity to the Liberty Doll via email. So yeah, that's another thing. It's like someone was like, oh, we'll put first and middle name. And it's like, all right, well then people will know my middle name too. And Facebook, I know that some people have tried to change their name on Facebook, and Facebook made them provide proof of their name with a driver's license or something like that, proof that that's your name. So, I don't even know, I might not even be able to change my name on there. But anyways, as I was saying, so I'm going to go through, once I do reactivate, I'll go through my friends list, do a massive purge, and anyone that I notice that might be missing, I'm going to use my sock account. So interestingly enough, I do have a sock account, and a sock account is a fake name or a fake Facebook profile, whatever, because if you've been on Facebook or on the internet for a while, there was a period of time where Facebook pages were getting hacked by some group that was replacing them with pictures of goats. And I don't really remember why, but I know that Wolf in a Sheeple's World was around back then, so they would probably know that. I know that sometimes he watches on here, so he might remember this. And back then it was like the Libertarian Sarahs were around, and whole different other pages. Anyways, a lot of them ended up getting hacked by people, and like all the content was replaced with pictures of goats and all this other stuff, and the ban hammers were coming down and blah 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 blah. So I created a sock account. So I have a sock account, and then I have the sock account to moderate my Liberty Doll group while I am on mobile, because you can't do that from mobile, which is kind of weird. Otherwise, you have to have like a separate account to log into. So I have that. So I'll do some cross-referencing. Do I think I will ever figure out who did it? No. But yeah. That's what I'm going to do. So I think right now my biggest concern, like I said, I don't know if my address was released or not. I do know that apparently I slept through it last night, but there were some happenings, and my husband thought that someone was breaking into the house, and the noise that it created was loud enough that it woke him up, which is kind of disturbing that I slept through that. But so that's the thing that happened. I guess my biggest concern is, like, are these people really going to try to do something to get my license revoked? Because I mean, I'm pretty sure anyone can file a licensing complaint. And what's interesting is if it's the people who I'm suspecting, and I could be totally wrong, it's just a guess. If it's the people who I'm suspecting, I believe they have filed licensing complaints on people before, so they know how to do it. So if that were to happen, I don't really know what that does. I do have liability insurance for legal assistance with licensing complaints, because that is something that you have to carry. Insurance companies make you carry it. When I was in a group practice, I had to carry it. So I have that, and I pay for that every year. But then after that, anytime that I renew my license or apply for anything on insurance companies, or even I finally started getting together the materials to transfer or get my license in South Carolina, they all always ask the question of, has there ever been a complaint against you? Has there ever been disciplinary action? Blah, 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 blah. And that can affect their decisions. Now, I know that I have known some people that have done some messed up things in the mental health field and were able to retain their licenses or get them back. So, I mean, that was things like, unethical behavior or overprescribing medications. I mean, I don't know. I guess it would come up to the board and what they think, and it being the board in Massachusetts and it being a blue state. I mean, are they going to just hold my views against me and it's an open and shut case? Like, I don't know. And Tristan's asking, is there no protection against bad faith licensing complaints or ways for the board to punish abuse of the system? I have no idea. I really don't know. Because I never really thought that this was a situation that I would be in, I guess. I really don't know any information. So, I mean, I guess I'm going to have to do some research and hope. But it would be really messed up if this also made it difficult for me to transfer or get a license in South Carolina and do all that. So that's the other thing is people, I see Jesse Meek asked about moving. So he asked, moving out of Massachusetts seems to be going from a desire to a necessity rapidly. Massachusetts does not deserve you. The dollhouse and guns and gadgets should come to Kansas. So the whole issue with moving has been like nothing is open as of, I think, like 2 weeks ago. We had friends that were trying to go to New Hampshire and got stopped at the border and got turned around. I don't think that Rhode Island border is open yet. Connecticut, I don't even know. I mean, so there's no moving companies open. There's no real estate offices. Like, we're stuck in limbo until things open. Luckily, banks are still open, so I'm gonna try to get pre-approval. I think it is like next month. I'm gonna try to save for another month and try to go for pre-approval next month. But I mean, we can't put a timeline on anything because, you know, we can't get a real estate agent. We can't get out of the. We can't really get out of the state. We can't get rid of all the stuff that we need to get rid of because pretty much all of our furniture is second, third, or fourth hand, and so we were planning on leaving it all behind. We can't bring it to the dump. We can't give it to Salvation Army. Like, pretty much every path out is blocked at this moment in time. And the whole phase plan in Massachusetts, every phase is meant to be 3 to 4 weeks long, provided it still follows whatever trajectory the state is interested in. With all of the protests and at night, some of the riots that are going on, there is the possibility of a spike in cases that could reset us back to zero as far as Massachusetts is concerned, with like flattening the curve. So who knows? But we did have someone come and bring some of our furniture and extra crap and put it on the side of the road this week. So that was good. Some people took it. Philosopher says, I don't know, doll. The ideology someone has doesn't matter. There are a lot of SJW or status libertarians. If I were you, I'd look at everyone and try to see if they're virtuous on principle. Hit me up if you need support. Sorry this happened. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that is a good point. I mean, I suppose like there are certain people like within the community. I don't like using those words because it sounds so silly. There are certain people in the community that I do trust or I think that have like good judgment. And so usually 9 times out of 10, I scroll through all the mutual friends and I see the people that they have added and have mutual. And if it's like, if any of them are people that I trust, I usually accept it, but I don't know. I might get rid of a lot of those folks too. I mean, we'll see. A lot of them are other like YouTubers and stuff. I saw that Punk Rock Libertarians was in the chat here somewhere earlier. Like, they found me on Facebook, which is really awkward, but I mean, when you have like 200 mutual friends with someone, I suppose it's bound to happen. Aaron Miller says, no one deserves to be doxxed regardless of who they are. I agree. I wouldn't even like wish doxing on my worst enemy because that's just messed up, you know? Crip Crack Attack says, love your shirt. Do you know the artist's name? So I keep trying to hold my mug in front of it because, like, legit, like, I DL don't know if it's some sort of copy infringement to be wearing this, but this is the full picture, and I think it's by a company called Lucky 13. It was, I got it on sale at a website years ago called angryyoungandpoor.com. And they have like punk and like rockabilly clothing and stuff. And that's where I used to get like my studs to make my studded and spiked jacket and back patches and all things like that. Side note, this is half product endorsement, but half I realized last week that when I actually have a mug and I'm holding it in my hands, I drink a lot more water and I'm not as dehydrated when this is done. So... Twerk1 says, these fanatic leftists are trying to intimidate anyone slightly right of them. They see the riots working on getting what they want. You know, and the crazy thing of this is, aside from that post, if anyone looked at my personal Facebook page or looked at my Twitter, you know, I don't agree with rioting and looting, but I've been, you know, supportive of the protests and, you know, equal rights. And I just posted, there was a video the other day of supporting like black militias and things like that. Like, fuck, ooh, I almost said a bad word that I'm not allowed to say on YouTube, but like, go for it. The Second Amendment is for everyone. First Amendment is for everyone. All of our constitutional rights are natural rights, regardless of the Constitution, and they are for everyone. Yes, please exercise them. You know, just don't burn down people's businesses. And the thing is, the craziest thing is that post was about the planned riots, that there were already rumors that they were going to be violent, and there were rumors that they were planning on attacking personal property in the suburbs and things like that. Especially with like the planned Brockton rallies. And the craziest thing is, if you went on the Brockton Facebook page and you looked at Twitter for people who had talked about Brockton, there were tons of people that were like, oh, I'll shoot you if you come and wreck my Chick-fil-A. But I'm the one that gets doxxed. Like, I mean, it's so ridiculous. And I mean, saying stay safe and stay loaded, I mean, someone had mentioned on the YouTube post, like, that's just good practice if you are a Second Amendment proponent. And I mean, yeah, I feel like if I said that like anywhere, I won't say any other state, but in a number of other states, I mean, it wouldn't really be controversial. Fire Makes Me King says, yes, emailing an attorney is a start. She could put you in touch with someone appropriate if needed. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'll do that. Yeah, I mean, I guess it can't hurt me, right? Thank you, Douglas from Pennsylvania. Ray says, from Jason and I, we hope everything comes out okay. I had to purge and separate my SCA account from my personal because of my views in the new St. Louis riots. Love from the philosopher Homestead. I am sorry to hear that. It's crazy how even more divided the world is becoming. Crazy Uncle Bob says, if you find who done it, be sure to return the favor. I mean, I wouldn't do that. Two wrongs don't make a right. And while I do agree, you know, all use of force is immoral unless it's in self-defense, doxing someone because they doxed me isn't really self-defense. That I would consider that an act of aggression, and I don't think that would be very nice. So what else is going on with this? So I suppose, in a way, so I had mentioned a few times over the last couple months that there was a new project in the works, and that my patrons knew about it, but no one else really, and I would reveal it eventually. And I guess this is there's no better time than now. So luckily, I suppose, worst case scenario, I do lose my license or get a disciplinary action or something and can't practice mental health anymore. That would be a load of bullshit. But say that did happen. Worst case scenario, I am currently in the process of being certified as a life coach. So, backup plan, I suppose, that I didn't even realize was going to be a backup plan. So, yeah, so I'm actually taking classes right now from an institute right now for life coaching. I am in a special program specifically for people who are already therapists and counselors and are in the mental health world that are looking to either add it to their practice or to transition over completely. So I'm finishing, that class finishes June 29th. And then I'm going to be doing something extra about using like cognitive behavioral approaches in coaching and blah, 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 blah. But anyways, bottom line is certification actually isn't required to be a life coach. Pretty much anyone can do it. I could have technically started anytime, but because I am licensed in the state as a life coach, really it just, I'm bound by certain ethical guidelines to make sure that I have proper training and keep everything separate and blah, 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 blah. And so I have actually started seeing coaching clients now. I could have, my patrons have known about this since like February, and I could have started seeing people then, but you have to have a certain number of hours to get your certification. And I don't know, I guess I can't get out of the mental health mindset of having some letters after my name. So I wanted to have the certificate. And so all the hours that I get now count towards that certificate. So right now, I opened it to patrons at this point. And we're going to get that going. And Patriotic says, life coach, you mean you could help adults on the autism spectrum like me? So with life coaching, so the only thing that you would need to know is life coaching is not counseling. The two are very different. Life coaching is nice because I'm not bound by like state lines. So I could provide coaching to anyone in any state, and in fact, any country, anyone in the entire world, I could provide coaching to. The only thing is it is important to understand that because I'm already a therapist, I really have to put a distinction between counseling and coaching. The best way to describe it is counseling focuses on mental health issues and symptoms of that, and focuses on like processing past events and the way they are affecting things now and getting through that and getting over symptoms, trauma, behavior patterns, things like that. Coaching is focused in the present and in the future, and it's when you have specific goals that you want to reach, say, forming a business, getting more work-life balance, getting better at public speaking, becoming more organized. What are some other examples? Finding new direction or fulfillment in your life, things like that. And then helping you reach those goals and like fulfill your full potential. So counseling is more like getting you from point A to like B. And then coaching is getting you from B to like C, D, E, F, G, and forever on, if that makes sense. So anyone who has been interested, you know, I've had a phone call with them or like a video session or something to make sure they understand the distinctions. I have paperwork to explain the distinctions and blah, 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 blah. So, and it doesn't involve diagnostics. It doesn't involve like really mental health anything. It's about mental wellness instead of mental illness, I suppose would be a good way to describe it. So I'm glad that I started that, so that worst case scenario, I have a backup plan. And I'm thinking, because of everything going on with YouTube, and I've noticed I actually surfed around some other people's channels today to take a look, and it seems like anyone, generally speaking, who is libertarian, voluntarist, conservative, any of those folks, even roaming millennial, I looked and her views are way down. So it seems to be all of us, anyone like center or right in general is having a tough time right now. I mean, it could be people on the left too. I don't know. I didn't really investigate any of them. But so I'm thinking that I might start a secondary channel about Liberty Life Coaching or something, and just make quick little videos about general like mental wellness tips and tricks and blah, 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 blah. because that would provide what we call evergreen content, which means it's not something that's just in a 24-hour news cycle and people might look at it forever and ever. And so that if I can get that monetized, I mean, it would be interesting to see if they would determine that somehow doesn't meet community guidelines, because I'll tell you what, the other thing is YouTube right now has this whole thing. They started this whole new thing where you are supposed to be able to fill out a survey for every video that you do to get it graded as to whether or not it can be monetized. For every single one of my videos that I have posted, I have filled out that survey. I have met the requirements. They have told me there was no issues and I would be monetized. And the minute I hit saved, I got flagged. So it'll be interesting to see if I start a second channel about mental wellness, if the same thing happens there. And then it would be, because I guess that would separate whether it's just me or the content. But, so yeah, Liberty Life Coach. I did buy a domain, libertylifecoach.me, because I thought it was cute and catchy, and I'm figuring out all of that stuff. But I mean, it's a tough time in the news cycles right now with everything going on, because everything going on is deemed controversial. And, for shits and gigs, I went through and I looked at all the different community advertiser guidelines for YouTube. Do you know they consider pimple popping videos to be harmful content? I could not believe that was on the list. And it wasn't even an exhaustive list, but pimple popping videos, which is gross. I know, but they are a popular thing. That is considered a harmful medical act that you're not allowed to post on YouTube and is not advertiser friendly. Twerk1 says, blew off Facebook and Twitter long ago. Too many leftist weirdos jumping on everything to hammer you on. Use Patreon for folks to support our doll. She deserves it. Fresh thought and common sense is worth it. Thank you. Gardner's here. Hello. He says, I'm glad someone asked about the propriety of posting your videos on Facebook. I hadn't thought of that. I didn't either, honestly. But I have thought about how much people I know love your work. Thank you. Robert Chappelle says, banks still open because printing presses go brrr. Trashman4444 says, how are you going to get to Porkfest if the borders are closed? Well, so I've talked this over with the organizer, and first of all, Porkfest is still 3 weeks away, so there is still time. But there are some contingency plans. One of them would be that she would provide me with a letter, because you are allowed to go over the border if it's for work. Liberty Doll is an LLC as of February. So I guess that was some amazing foresight that I didn't ever realize I would need. So, I mean, I guess it's good that I did that. So she would be able to provide me with a letter to the LLC saying that I'm required to go to this meeting thing or something like that. And so that's what I would do. And there are some contingency plans as well for a few other things within the state of New Hampshire that I am not going to say on the air, because my NSA agent would probably write that down so fast. Rob Allen says the virus is too woke to affect protesters. The virus is too woke to affect protesters, at least protesters against the man. I mean, honestly, it could come out that there is no spike in cases, in which case, then the lockdowns were for nothing. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes and which way they twist the narrative. Sergeant Rock says, good afternoon, Doll. How is Doll doing today? Doll is having a complicated week. Jonathan Stevie says, in my opinion, all the riots did was prove the beer flu lockdowns were a joke. Well, yeah, it's basically what I just said. Sergeant Rock 52 says, you and Caitlin Bennett should do a live stream together. I suppose if she invited me to something, maybe. But unfortunately, within the eyes of the general public, there is a guilt by association type thing. And a lot of the things that they associate Caitlin Bennett with, I would not want to be associated with myself. But even beyond that, quite frankly, I don't agree with the way that she conducts herself. A lot of times, at least in the videos that get the most popular of how she conducts herself out in the public with different protesters or activists or college students or whatever, it's not my personal style and not something that I would do and not the way that I would approach those situations. I don't know her as a person, so I can't say whether or not I dislike her as a person. I agree with some of her Second Amendment views. A lot of her other stuff I don't really agree with. So I don't think that I don't know if I would ever want to do anything with her just because of, the way that she conducts herself. And I feel like our personalities and communication styles might also clash. And I don't imagine it being a very enjoyable experience. And my goal with Liberty Doll has always been to conduct myself in a very professional manner. And I don't think, not the kind of manner that she has in a lot of her videos. So, nothing against her or you if you like her. Red Rum says, so her First Amendment doesn't count. When did I say that her First Amendment doesn't count? I don't believe I did. So First Amendment is you have every right to say what you want to say, but First Amendment doesn't mean that I have to like it or the way in which you do it. There is no First Amendment that says that I'm not allowed to have an opinion about your speech, but I'm not preventing her from having speech. Not inviting her to my show or not going on her show is not stopping her speech in any way. So I don't really think that applies. And Red Rum says she didn't invite you anyways. No, I know she didn't, but someone made a super chat saying that we should do something together or a video together, and I am explaining why I wouldn't really like to do that. So, I don't really know what your problem is, dude. I don't really know why you're being antagonistic. You have every right to be antagonistic. I just don't really understand it. And that's okay. You do you, boo-boo. That is the beauty of free speech and the free market and all of that, is you can say whatever you like. Robin Patty says, I was in special forces. We were trained in how to exfiltrate people and ourselves from not so nice areas of the world. I'll get with some of my friends from my time there and organize it. Thank you. In all honesty, if you have any tips, I suppose, of how to navigate or any ideas, greatly welcome, Robin. You and I are in pretty frequent contact anyways, but if you have any ideas, I'll take them. Gito 463 says, I've heard stories of piles of bricks mysteriously showing up in major cities just before the riots started. So I saw those too, the piles of bricks. Now, I will say, so there was one video going around of police officers in Boston with a pickup truck full of bricks and taking bricks out of the truck. That video, it was assumed that it was police officers delivering bricks. And while I do not trust the Boston police, there has been a lot of documented corruption within the Boston police, but any big city is probably going to have some corruption in their departments. But that particular video has been debunked. There were some witnesses, and fact checkers, if you want to trust them, that pointed out that those particular police were actually campus police from Northeastern. It's a college that is in Boston, and the video was debunked in that those bricks and things that they were picking up were actually bricks that protesters had already pried out of the sidewalks or were loose in the sidewalks, and they were afraid. They assumed that those loose bricks would be picked up to be used and thrown, and so those were supposedly. It is said that those were bricks that they picked up from the sidewalks and things at Northeastern specifically. As for all of the other piles of bricks and pallets of bricks being delivered and found in places, I have no idea. You would think that someone would witness them getting dropped off. You would think that there would be some companies somewhere that would be like, oh, weird, why are people suddenly ordering pallets of bricks when they're not a construction company? Or, alternatively, why are these construction and masonry companies ordering all these pallets of bricks to be dropped off at random street corners that aren't under construction? I don't know if anyone has stepped forward with any information about that. So, I don't know. I mean, that's an excellent question. I will say that compared to in other places, the protests here did actually end up being pretty peaceful. I think there were some issues in Boston. Brockton, I thought was going to be really bad. Taunton, I thought was going to be really bad, as they're known to be bad areas. Brockton, there was a Dunkin' Donuts that had some windows broken and was set on fire. But to my knowledge, that was the only property damage in the whole. I mean, I don't know if you can call it a riot if only one place was vandalized, and it was only vandalized, like you watch it on video, and it was like a 5-minute period of time, and then that was it. There was some fireworks thrown at police. There was at one point someone put a propane tank in a shopping cart and like lit it on fire. And it was really interesting because the news were like, oh, that's a propane tank on fire. Oh, it's got a fuse. That might blow up. And then they switched to Boston. And it's like, what? And that's kind of important. Aside from those instances, I mean, it wasn't really too bad. And actually, the crowd was self-policing. There was someone that was like picking up rocks and about to throw it. And a bunch of people jumped on them and stopped it. And so that was pretty cool. And my favorite part, I have to tell you guys about this because this was badass. The MVP of like the entire protest in Brockton was this black woman in a bright pink hoodie. And she was just in the middle of this busy intersection directing traffic and doing a fine job. And there was a line of police officers behind her yelling at her to stop, but they weren't directing traffic. And she was like just directing the traffic, and like there weren't any accidents. At one point, a cop just like walked over and like maced her out of nowhere, and she basically like screamed "F you" and went back to directing traffic. And the cop went and got back in the line. And it was like, wow, she's like doing their jobs for them. And then at one point, then the police line came forward and they tried to push her out. And then at that point, there was one officer that started directing traffic. And there was almost an accident when he started directing traffic. And one of the cars, for some reason, as it drove by, he started beating it with his baton. And then the car stopped and looked like they were going to back up when it was really like tense for a minute. But then they moved on and he went back into the line. And that lady went back and she was back to directing traffic. And the reporters on scene said that she did that for the whole night. She just stood out there and directed traffic in that intersection. And I just think that that is an amazing free market solution. Jesse Meek says, your personal Facebook reflects your personal views and opinions. The board can't hold you liable for your suggestions if they were not made in a professional forum or unless you made them to someone directly under your care. That's a really good point. That is a really good point, and I don't know how much that would hold. I don't know if licensing complaints require lawyers, but I think a lawyer would be able to make that argument. And I mean, the fact of the matter is the code of ethics says that your politics are never supposed to come into session. And I can tell you from the way that my clients talk to me, they all assume that I agree with them in every way, and they all think that I am just as bleeding heart liberal as they are. I take, because there is a difference of opinion politically and philosophically, I do take extra care to make sure that that doesn't come into session. Even though it's difficult. It's really difficult sometimes, especially now and some of the political things that have been going on. But I take very, very good care to make sure that that doesn't come into session. So that would be my hope, I guess. Trashman says 2 wrongs don't make a right. Mathematically, 2 negatives do make a positive. I saw someone in the chat mention Steven Crowder, if I would ever consider doing anything with him. And I would. People have asked me that before. Steven Crowder, I love his skits and I love his Change My Mind. Some of the way that he tells news stories, I'm not as fond with, but I really like his skits and when he goes out on the streets and does some of the more investigative stuff. But yeah, I mean, if he ever invited me, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't say anyone, but a lot of places, if they invited me, I would certainly consider it. It just, I'm not going to go out of my way to get on other people's platforms because I feel like that's kind of intrusive and, let them do their own thing. Let's see. Rod L. Miller says, is it just me wondering how it's constitutional to have lawyers' offices shut when they are still making arrests? I guess the Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, along with the rest of the Constitution, has been set aside. Well, so what's interesting is there was a lot of places that were saying that they weren't even going to do arrests during all of this. So it's interesting that they made such an effort to close the jails and let people out of the jails. I know people from, the inner city, I suppose we'll call it, that had been in jail and were released for catching coronavirus. No one on violent charges, though there was that pedophile that was released. I don't think anyone that did, I don't think murderers or rapists were released, but there were a lot of non-violent crimes or burglaries or basic assaults, which I'm not saying that those are non-violent. They are violent, but I'm saying nothing as hardcore as murder or rape, I think, were released. But a lot of people were released, and now they've made how many arrests because of protests? I haven't checked in a few days, but last time I looked a few days ago, it was over 1,000. So they're at one point saying that they don't want people in the jails because of Corona, but then they're also arresting hundreds, or at this point, perhaps thousands of people and keeping them in their jails. I think it was in Ohio. They arrested, forget how many people. It was a bunch of people, and they kept them for almost 24 hours without food, water, or bathroom breaks. And I want to say that there's a civil rights complaint or something in the works now because of that. Gunny says, what if every citizen started making citizen arrests of police officers? I can't imagine that going well at all. Let's see. Douglas from Pennsylvania says, ask your viewers to watch the ads. I think they're required to count as a view. Well, I mean, they're not even they're telling me that they're not even putting ads on my videos. So I don't really know if that's really even relevant. Mr. Robot Pilot says, as soon as I win the lottery, I'm taking you international. In what way? Matthew Perkins says, if you're listed as the manager of an LLC, don't broadcast its actual name. That info is public. You'd be doxing yourself. Aha! I have a different appointed manager. My lawyer thought of that. So that's good. So they'll get someone else's address. Sergeant Rock says Andrew Delisle had a good idea. Stephen Crowder, we talked about that. Andy says my work van has New York plates. No one has stopped me in New Hampshire asking for my papers. Your trip to Porkfest will be uneventful once you cross the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border. Enjoy the scenery. Thank you. Yeah, I think so as far as I know, the governor of New Hampshire, how do you say their name? Sununu? Is that how you say it? I don't know. It's something like that. Never closed the border and said that they don't have the authority to close the border. So I suspect that it's Massachusetts State Police that were stopping people. That's my theory, at least. Semper says that they run Ad Blocker Plus and never seen any ad on YouTube except their own movies. Yeah, I used to run an ad blocker, and then I was a horrible person and did a free trial of premium simply because sometimes I listen to music videos on YouTube and I didn't like having to stop for commercials, which is ironic, I know. Keeping It Real America with Johnny says, I asked this to American Joe, would you consider starting a podcast? I mean, I guess this isn't technically a podcast. For a while, I was putting the audio versions of all of my videos up on Podbean, so it was going on to like Stitcher and SoundCloud and iTunes and Google Podcasts and all of that. And then I kind of forgot to keep updating it. I am terrible. I just have too many different things going on at different times. Grayson May says New York City is now becoming violent at the moment. Oh dear. Well, I mean, it is getting dark, and it seems to be that the bad players come out at night. It seems to be when curfews start. So I don't know if New York has a curfew right now. Robert Chappelle says, just got a message on my phone. Cops and Live PD have been taken off the air. That should fix everything. Like Cops, like the show Cops? That's interesting. Do you know they did a season of Cops in Brockton? I am told. I've never seen it, but I've heard that it's a thing. And it tells you what kind of place Brockton is. Let's see. I'm going to flip into this window so I can better see the people who are tagging me. Okay. Plain Nut 767 says 8 o'clock curfew in New York, and it is 8:20, so that explains it. Sergeant Rock 52 says the cowards like the dark. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, the whole cover of darkness thing. I mean, in a way, so I obviously, I've said this a million times now, that I don't agree with rioting and the riots. I don't agree with the destruction of private property and businesses. Government buildings, those are the people that you're mad at. If you were to go and vandalize the Federal Reserve, hypothetically speaking, or an IRS building or something, would I be mad? Nah. I'd be like, okay, I get it. But, I mean, I at least understand. I don't agree with the riots, but I understand how they came to be. Because, I mean, we already had these in Ferguson, after Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, all these people. Interestingly enough, no one really seemed to care about Philando Castile. Because he was a illegal gun owner. But, we already saw these things happen before. And now we're in a period of time where people are already sort of like revved up because they've been on lockdown for, in some places, 3 months. In Massachusetts, we are on month 3. It was all of March, all of April. All of March, all of April, all of May, and now we're in June. So we're on month 4 at this point. Not being allowed to see people, social distancing, mask requirements, all of these things. So people were already tense. They were already in a bad mood. And this just gives them like an excuse, and a place. It's not a good place, but a place in their minds to expend some of this aggression that they have. Basically, the current situation, politically, socially, culturally, all of this was a powder keg. And, this whole thing with George Floyd was lighting the fuse, quite frankly. Ooh, that startled me. And then, it doesn't help that, there's all these other videos coming out of all of these other things that are happening, that are it's like people that are protesting, and now I'm talking not about the riots, the protests themselves of people walking around holding signs is what I'm talking about. They are protesting police violence, and then the police hold a monopoly on violence, and the only way they really know how to respond is with violence. So people are protesting violence, and it's being met by violence, which is then causing violence, which is being met by more violence. And it's a cycle, right? A self-perpetuating cycle here. I think things here are starting to die down a little bit. Someone's mentioning in Buffalo. So there was the video of the cops pushing that old man over, and the story is that he walked into the line and tripped over his own feet, and someone happened to bump into him as he was falling, something like that. I watched the video. I didn't see it that way, but even if we're going to go with that narrative, he fell to the ground, started bleeding, and a bunch of cops just kept on walking. Like, that's kind of not okay. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things going on. Possible solutions. Qualified immunity is a problem. I know that there are some moves now to consider that, and getting rid of that is a possibility. I know people are saying that my plant looks sad, so I'm only in this building once a week now, so I watered that a little bit when I just came in right before the show, but it'll perk back up probably by the time this thing ends. So yeah, qualified immunity is an issue. Now, I've seen some people counter that and say, well, if you get rid of qualified immunity, then any cop could be charged with anything for any complaint. And I don't really think that that's the case, because, I mean, cases would still have to go to trial and jury, right? And as it is, people can get sued for anything anyways. So really all that would do, so qualified immunity, the way that I understand it is that, so if in the... let me try to think of an easy example. So, for example, in the Floyd case, qualified immunity means that in order for Derek Chauvin to get charged, Floyd's family's lawyers would have to prove that a case with the same circumstances and death in the same way would have had to happen before. So there has to be a precedent for a previous case with the same characteristics to exist in order for the current case to get charged. Kind of like in Massachusetts for self-defense, you have to be able to prove equal or lesser force. You have to be able to prove an equal case in order to override or get charged under qualified immunity. Robin Patty is telling me to mention my website of thelibertydoll.com. The is very important. Plainlibertydoll.com, for some reason, is owned by the Chinese, and it has been owned by the Chinese for a long time. Not really sure what the deal with that is. So that is the way. I mean, I'm not an expert, a legal expert. I'm not an expert in qualified immunity, but that is what I understand it. Dragon's Talon 1001 says, if qualified immunity is removed, if a cop is sued, they would be held personally liable for the settlement or judgment, not the taxpayers. That is also a good point, because as it is right now, anytime a police officer is found guilty for something, or there's a lawsuit or something, it ends up being the taxpayers that pay for it rather than the individuals themselves. So that's one possible solution. Another possible solution would be for cops to have liability insurance. I mean, every other business, the public-facing business, has to have liability insurance. So, I mean, it would make sense if police officers had that. Now, I know that... So Bob Law says qualified immunity protects the police officers if he is acting consistent with his training and policy, absent violating any constitutional rights. But the thing is there have been plenty of cases where you could certainly argue that someone's civil and constitutional rights have been violated and the police officer was found justified in his behavior and nothing happened. So I would think that if no rights were actually violated, there wouldn't be a case. But when someone dies in police custody, there certainly is the possibility, I would say it's almost a fact, depending on the exact merits of the case, that a right has been violated. People are saying sound is out. And other people are saying it's okay. So, okay. Anyways, so David Neal says in Minnesota, they're talking about defunding the police and forming a committee of public safety. So, I have some mixed thoughts on this. So, defunding the police. Well, so honestly, with my view of privatizing everything, I don't think that that is the worst idea. I think that it could be done. And I say that because now, and I know people are going to be like, oh my God, you're an anarchist, blah, 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 blah. But hear me out. So in Detroit, and I reported on this a few years back when on my blog that is now gone when I moved over to the new site. But back in the day, a few years ago, Detroit was and is, I don't think it's gotten much better. Detroit was at a point where police officers stopped responding to a lot of emergency calls because it was too dangerous for them. So that essentially created a pocket of, a vacuum where there was no law enforcement or security for certain types of calls and things like that. And in its place, there was an organization that started called Detroit Threat Management, and they were really cool. And what was really cool about them is they were a private security organization that formed and came together with the idea of community policing and private security and private law enforcement. Now, one of the arguments that I've seen with this is that, okay, well, so if we went to a privately funded community policing thing, low-income areas and low-income families could not afford it. Detroit Threat Management proves that is not the case, because what happened is, A, they free of charge did some community policing in lower income areas, A, and B, they had free self-defense workshops and trainings for folks in the Detroit area. That's number 2. Additionally, anyone who, if you really support a cause, you are going to donate it to it, right? I mean, that's why charities exist and why churches are able to do charitable things and things like that. So there would be people that would donate funds towards this end, or they would have fundraisers or things like that. And again, that is what happened with Detroit Threat Management, is that they received donations and things like that, who thought it was important to have safety and security, and so they were able to offer their services to lower income areas. And so, I mean, there are a lot of people that when any libertarian solution for anything ever comes up, they say, well, that's never been tried, so you can't prove that it would work, and you don't know that it won't work or you don't know it'll work, and it won't work because it's never been tried. Well, at this point, in this particular solution has been tried and has worked in Detroit. So I think it's really cool that we have a real life example. And yeah, Mike Fawbush says that he does private security work. So, and if it's a private company, the issue with the police too is there is no accountability. It's like, who watches the watchman, who polices the police? In private organizations, they wouldn't have government protection. So if they effed up, they would have to be held liable and accountable for the fact that they effed up, which incentivizes them to do well and act ethically and legally and morally. So, I think, I think that it could work. I haven't looked into the details of what actually the government in Minneapolis is proposing, but I feel like it would... without looking, I can bet it would probably be a case of I could see how the idea could work, but their execution of it I would not agree with. As I'm pretty sure, So R Seeker says defund the police doesn't mean what you think it means. It means no police. And like I said, I didn't actually look at it. I'm just making the case for like private security forces and private, I don't think you can call them police, but I guess private law enforcement or private security firms and things like that. And I honestly, like, if hypothetically speaking, people would then be protecting themselves and their own thing. I don't know. I think that... Sorry, I was distracted by the military trucks that just drove by. Damn, hold on a second. Wow, okay. Those were legit, like, Humvees that just drove by. Okay. Creepy. So someone mentioned police unions. So yeah, that's a possibility. There's a million and one possible solutions. I think that the issue, so someone is saying, well, what about internal affairs? But the thing is that is the police investigating themselves. So, I think at the very least, better training would be a good idea. Better de-escalation tactics. Number one, how to better handle people that are undergoing like a mental health crisis, I think would be number one, because there have been a number of cases publicized. Wrong direction for Devons, Andy. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, wrong direction for Devon. Well, I suppose they could be picking up the highway, but I don't think so. I think it's the wrong direction for Devons. But anyways, but yeah, because there have been a number of cases that were publicized over the last few years of people with autism or with different developmental disabilities or mental health issues getting into some pretty squirrely situations, because I see I sell cat litter saying squirrel. Yeah, there's been some bad situations because police are not mental health experts, and I don't really know how much training they get in handling mental health issues, but unfortunately calling the police is the law when it comes to mental health issues. So there's definitely like a problem there where it's like they're supposed to be the people that we get to respond, but they also don't know how to properly respond. to mental health issues. So bottom line, at the very least, there needs to be some improvements in training and in accountability, I think. Let's see. Let's pop back up into super chats here because I saw a few come in. Let's see. LCC says, I watch you on Roku and ads play at the beginning always, even ones not monetized. Well, that's interesting. So, I mean, I don't even know if I get a percentage of that or what, but I can tell you that so far in June, my YouTube channel has made $3. $3. So, yeah, but I mean, if I do a second channel, those videos won't require research or anything because it's stuff I already know. I can pop them together really quick, and that'll be some evergreen content. I might just have to have you guys pop over there and subscribe, at least temporarily, and watch it for a while because I need to have a certain number of subscribers and view minutes for things to get monetized once I start that. And then you can unsubscribe if you want, because you're probably not going to be all that interested, a lot of you. But let's see. Fixed Bayonet says, moving to Louisiana because F this S censored by FYT. Yes, F this S indeed. I don't know what state you're in, but I'm sure Louisiana is better than wherever you are. Rose Blight says those cops did call an EMT, which was on site. Australia is also having BLM protesters today. Yeah, I saw that they were in Europe as well. And I think England, which is pretty crazy. And I saw this really great video that I reposted on Twitter. And it's a black woman. She's obviously not from the US because she has a thick accent. I don't know what country she's from, but I mean, she talks about how people, compared to like the rest of the world, like the people of America are not oppressed. She said, you know, compared to other places in the world, in America, she's free because she can do whatever she wants. And she says, I'm not oppressed, I'm black. And then the camera pans over and there is a white activist, Karen, telling this woman that she needs to understand how oppressed she is. And it's a really good video. It's a really good video, and the black woman makes a point, and she says, you know, where are all these BLM people when all this violence is happening in Chicago? There's not BLM protesters there. Like, if Black Lives Matter, all Black lives should matter, just not the Black lives killed by white police officers. And she's absolutely right. You know, the people at BLM, and you know, there are people who do talk about violence in the inner cities. I don't know how to say his name correctly. Maj Tory talks about it. He's from Black Guns Matters. He talks about like urban violence and violence in inner cities and stuff like that, and how to create stronger and better communities and stuff like that. There are folks that talk about, but you don't see these huge protests happening over Chicago. And that is also one of the points in this video. And like the Karen just tells this woman that she's not looking hard enough. And it is like so insulting. Twisted Wizard said that they saw the video and it was awesome. Yeah, it's a really good video. Just Wrench It says, defund them, then they will tax your pockets. I mean, don't taxpayers technically pay for the police anyways? What I think is going to be interesting is how many people are going to pull out of public schools and go to homeschooling, and if they are going to be, if they are then going to complain about their taxes going to public schools, because now it's like, oh, well, we need to, I'm okay paying taxes because it goes to public education even if I don't have kids. Well, now that all these people we talked on the show before. There's over, it was what, 42 or 48% of households are now considering homeschooling. So say if 40% of people do pull their kids out of public school and decide to homeschool, it'll be interesting to see if there will be a bigger movement around lowering taxes or not having your taxes go to public education or something like that. I think that'll be really interesting to see. Our seeker is saying, and how many businesses will pull out of cities. That is also a really good point. I was reading, it was an article this morning, and it was from the viewpoint of like investments and like the bond bubble and real estate bubbles and things like that. But it talked about how we're probably going to see a lot of people moving out of the cities and the suburbs, because aside from jobs, I mean, and you can get a job in a city and commute 2 hours. I would never do that, but I know plenty of people who do. But I mean, online shopping has made it so that you can live out in, I almost said another word, bad word, East Bum F, and still have pretty much all the amenities and luxuries of living in the city. Even more so because you're not fighting people for resources, right? With online shopping, the only difference would be the availability of jobs. But this article talked about how we're probably going to see more people moving out of the cities. But then it also went into the whole thing of like, well, that's what we saw before the Roman Empire collapsed. So I don't know about that. Trashman says private works better in every department. I've seen 2 trucks in the pit at the Indianapolis incinerator, and they were, of course, city, not private haulers. Agreed. I mean, I interned with the state, and I've worked private, and I've worked like a state-funded nonprofit, and definitely the private got their money to stretch a lot farther, and they did a lot more good than public. And I mean, even just doing anything in the state requires paperwork that's going to take at least 6 months to go through. So even just by that nature, there is an advantage in the private sector. James Alonso says, great channel, LD. Thank you. Jesse Meek says, lock the door and grab your bang stick. They're getting serious now, sending the army after the doll. LOL, you rebel, you. This is the alarm that I set last week to print something out, and then I was like, what's going on with my phone? How do I stop that from happening again? Here we go. That was the alarm that I did last week to print out my licensure application for South Carolina. Dave Smith says, now you can buy another great shirt. Thank you. Though right now, every little penny I'm getting, I am putting in the down payment fund to get the hell out of here, because, I mean, God, every day feels less and less safe in Massachusetts, and it kind of feels like I'm sitting in the middle of like a bear trap and I'm waiting for it to snap above me, is kind of what it feels like. Gunny says the problem is that instead of protesting, we are here chatting. Well, I mean, I would argue that in my case, I mean, I suppose that doing my channel and doing my show is my version of protesting, and it's reaching a big audience, and in this format allows me to be able to talk to you guys like individually as best as I can. And I just remembered I was supposed to change these settings to make the chat move slower so it would be easier for me to keep up with it and read it, and I didn't do that. Remembering now at 8:45. Whoops. I think I have too many different pots on the stove that I'm trying to take care of all at the same time. Chris Britt, thank you. I like to tell myself that once we move, I'll be able to be better organized and have things more streamlined. And the whole idea of doing the life coaching thing as well is to make my life and my time more streamlined. So I don't necessarily have to have the two separate lives. I can sort of combine them and streamline them. So that'll, streamline the workflow and streamline the workload a little bit. And plus, I'll be able to, help out people that don't feel comfortable talking to people who are like anti-gun or something like that. Alexandria Otimex Cortez says time limits for how long you can knee someone's neck. 8 minutes seems to be too long. I mean, yeah, that's a possibility. Kitty Anya says there's a tropical storm about to hit Louisiana. Oh dear, be safe, please. Board up and do whatever you need to do. No D&D tonight, by the way. We're starting a new campaign next week. Dwayne Christensen asks if I saw the video where Patriots chased back Antifa rioters. I have not. BLM, I'm not sure how to say this. A Fret M. Sergeant, we'll go with, says BLM, Bureau of Land Management, Black Lives Matters. Though that is also the acronym for Bureau of Land Management, who owns quite a bit of property in the United States, I might add. There is tons of federal land out there. Iron Daisy says, I am being recruited as a teacher for some homeschooled kids. That is very cool. That's one of the other reasons why we want to move to South Carolina, is it is easier to homeschool down there than it is in Massachusetts. And I mean, it's crazy because all of these people who are anti-homeschooling say that there is no regulation around homeschooling, and that is not at all the case. I can't speak for other states, but in Massachusetts, you have to have a full curriculum that you need to get approved by the state, and you need to pass certain metrics at special intervals and provide that data to the state to prove that your child is being educated. So again, I don't know how it is in other states, but I know that I had a client once, a teenager who was homeschooled, and her mother was a college professor, and they put this woman through the ringer trying to say that she wasn't qualified to teach her kid algebra or Spanish when, number one, the family was bilingual and spoke Spanish, and number two, the mom taught Spanish at a college level. And, there's Khan Academy and the Ron Paul curriculum, which is one of my partners. I don't remember if I have him linked in the description. Yeah, so I don't know about other states, but that's how it is in Massachusetts. It's absolutely ridiculous here. But it is easier to homeschool in South Carolina. And I think, we with the internet, you have the entire, a modern equivalent of the Library of Alexandria at your fingertips, with things like Khan Academy and Google Scholar and all of these things. So there's no reason we don't have to have public school if all the tools are available to us, and they are. And Khan Academy is free. It is a nonprofit organization that provides free lessons. And I've referred kids to them before when they were having trouble with their teachers at school. There was a homeschool group I had some kiddos from a while back, and they used Khan Academy. And one of the towns that I worked in had one of the leading school systems in the state, and they used Khan Academy for math lessons and things like that. So Iron Daisy says that I'm good at math and English. That's what I'm being recruited to help teach. Very cool. Very cool. Tristan Goodrich says Khan Academy is great. It helped me with 4,000 level math courses while I was getting my degree. Awesome. So this Tristan Goodrich, And what is this, the Tristan that I know, or is this another Tristan? I mean, I know it's not the most common name, but it's probably common enough. It's probably not. But I always like think that I know people in the chat, and then I really have no idea who they are. So yeah, that's one of the many reasons. But again, it's a matter of all the moving parts and figuring out, like, I think what we're gonna have to end up doing is like find a place to rent and then sell up here after the fact, because I don't really know how any of this is going to work, quite frankly. And I guess it's ironic in a way. It puts us back on the regular timeline of having wanted to, we were wanting to get out, end of summer, beginning of fall, and it's looking like that's probably what's going to happen anyways. Like, that was the original timeline, and then when COVID happened, we said, okay, as soon as the lockdowns lift, we're out, but it looks like the lockdowns aren't even going to be lifted here until then, so it's going to end up being the same anyways, I guess. Let's see. Jesse Meek says, I've been through 4 different law enforcement academies over 24 years. Mental health was barely touched upon. I got 10 times more training in a 6-month class when I became a basic EMT. I'm not surprised. I kind of expected that. And the reason that I say I'm not surprised is not because of the way that the police have been handling mental health issues that I've seen, but it's merely based on the fact that for example, I knew someone who was going to school to become a psychiatric nurse. So this is a nurse who specializes in mental health and psychiatric issues. This chick did not know what the DSM was. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and it is what we use to give diagnosis in the mental health world. This woman was halfway through her training as a psychiatric nurse and did not know what the DSM was. So that leads me to believe that anyone who is not in a dedicated mental health program probably does not get much mental health training, even if their job could entail mental health work. And so that's why that tidbit does not surprise me. Rose Blight says, my mom always complained that when her children were doing homeschooling that she had to pay school taxes. Same once we were out of school. Why pay school taxes when no children in school? I agree. And so if you guys didn't hear, you probably did by now, the Libertarians at their convention nominated Jo Jorgensen. And some people were upset about this because she doesn't necessarily meet all of the purity tests of a small L libertarian versus a big L libertarian. And she's not getting up there and saying that she wants to disband everything immediately like some folks are. But what she does want to do is does want to do like any of this stuff to be opt-out, so that if you don't have kids in school, you can opt out of that portion of your taxes. And I think that that's pretty cool. I think that that's a nice compromise solution. So, I think that that's a pretty neat idea. And things like that, I mean, I don't think a libertarian's like going to win in my lifetime, but it might bump her up to get like the 5% of the vote to make them official, like third party with automatic ballot access in all the states. Iron Daisy says, I'm a trash collector and I know what the DSM is. Well, there we go. So, Joe Marisol says, finally caught you live, finally not as busy as I have been. Well, hello and welcome. I'm usually not on this late as well. And I didn't even think that I was going to be on this late because, quite frankly, I have been in kind of a crappy mood this week with everything that happened. And I was like, well, I'm just going to go on and talk for like half an hour and leave. And now it's almost 9 o'clock. Let's see. Torque1 says, more for your Get the Hell Out of Here fund. Thank you. Robert Chappelle says Bureau of Land Management owns 86% of the state of Nevada. That's what I thought. I saw a map recently, and it was some pretty big chunks of land. Matthew Perkins says, make sure you read the email I sent you. I will check it out. I feel like I might have seen it already, unless you're talking about a new email, but I'll take a look. Kitty Anya says, I am in South Carolina, actually, soon to welcome you to one of the few states that has not had to activate the National Guard. Amazing food in Charleston. I did. We visited Charleston when we honeymooned. We spent half of our honeymoon in Charleston, the other half in Columbia. I greatly enjoyed the food in Charleston and the historic district. My poor husband, you know that he cares about me, because he put up with 8 hours of us going through all the historical districts and looking at everything and like Rainbow Row and all of that stuff, when that's not really his thing. So, but the city of Charleston itself reminded me like too much of Boston, I think, probably because all the college kids that were around at that time. It was summer break. But, I mean, we're hoping to get to the western part of the state, but you cannot beat South Carolina barbecue. I have been spoiled when I had barbecue in South Carolina. Nothing up here compares after that. Crazy Uncle Bob says, I wonder how many of the diagnoses in the DSM apply to me. I'm guessing at least 100 of them. I mean, everyone could technically fit a little bit of something. They actually make that disclaimer with some of the psychological tests out there, but the difference as to whether or not it is impacting your life enough to distress you is the key. DSM-5 is the Saints Row of DSM. Says Troll with a Purpose. Yes, and one of you lovely people was kind enough to actually send me a physical copy of the DSM-5 for my work, and I very much appreciate that. You know who you are. So I see that people are starting to fade out a little bit, and it is 9 o'clock now. And there is a cop like parked right across the street. I mean, I guess I don't have to worry about anyone like coming into my office and trying to break in and attack me if there's a cop across the street, hypothetically speaking. Mark Holland says not much food in Mass is good except for the lobsters and crabs from the Atlantic. Yeah. I mean, it's just regular old American food, I guess. All right, so I'll make sure that I've gotten all the super chats, and then I guess we'll wrap it up. So we talked about the news like a little bit, but like I said, I mean, it was more personal stuff today and everything that's going on with all of that. And it looks like we did get all the super chats. All right. Tim Allen is posting my website. If you want to see my sponsor partners or some merch, that's thelibertydoll.com. We also have all of the partners in the description. NordVPN too. I think that I forgot to put them in there. And let me tell you, with everything going on, I'm very happy that I have myself a VPN. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help with people doxing me necessarily in the way that they did, but I mean, it provides a little bit of an extra layer of security. So, there is not a white van on the street, and there's just that cop sitting there, but I don't know. There's usually cops in this rotary, so I mean, I guess, yeah. There was a white van that parked here at like 2 a.m. one night when I was finishing up D&D, and that was pretty scary. But, so I apologize to the people that just hopped in within the last like few minutes, half an hour or so, who are like, oh, I finally got a live stream because now it's ending. But at least you caught part of it and can go back and rewatch. So, yeah, I guess that wraps it up. I will be here next week, of course. When I am at PorcFest, I don't know if I'm going to be doing a live stream because I think I'm going to be there the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. What is that? The 26th, 27th, and 28th, I think. I don't think I'll be... I've been told that there's the possibility that there won't even be Wi-Fi at the hotel because it's in Lancaster, New Hampshire. So I don't know if I'll be doing a live stream, but I mean, maybe I'll do one earlier in the week. Maybe I won't. We'll see. But that's that. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for your kindness and support. Thank you for the super chats. And again, check out the partners and all of that fun stuff. It's been a week. But you guys always brighten my day. I don't know. Even when I'm in a bad mood and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing this, I come on here and then I have a good time. So, again, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye. And now, awkward hitting end broadcast and waiting for it to actually happen.